When you're transferring data around the world, you need to be really cognizant of the fact of where you're sending data to. So firstly, you need to check in whether the receiving country has adequacy. Essentially what this means is that your country has been deemed adequate from the EU. Countries which have adequacy are countries such as Israel, Argentina, and Japan. If you are transferring European citizens' data between Japan and the EU, for instance, you don't have to take extra steps to protect that data. The data in Japan is protected at the same level as in the EU, therefore you can freely transfer data between the two countries. However, if you're interested in transferring data to a country like South Africa, for instance, South Africa doesn't have adequacy under the EU. So you need to think about appropriate safeguards that you need to put in place to protect the data when it is transferred to South Africa. So for instance, you could use the SCCs. The SCCs stand for the Standard Conditions of Contract. Essentially what this means is that they are annexed to a contract. The SCCs are standard conditions of contract which cannot be changed. They are model clauses, and basically what they say is, when I am transferring this data between Europe and South Africa, for instance, that data will be securely protected. What's really interesting to note is if you are using companies based in America. Some countries in America are following the EU-US Data Privacy Framework Program. Essentially what this means is, if you are transferring data to AWS, for instance, you need to check if AWS is an active participant of this framework. Of course, all the big companies in Silicon Valley are active participants. Companies such as Microsoft, Azure, Google, AWS, they are all active participants within this framework. Essentially what that means is if you are an active participant, you are protecting the data once it hits US soil and is stored within these servers. So therefore, you have adequacy and you can safely transfer data between the US and the EU. If you are using any companies that are active participants within this framework, you can safely transfer data between the US and the EU. You don't need to always necessarily house data within the EU. Obviously, that is best practice and, I would say first prize, but you can also adequately and safely store data within other regions in the world.